Here is a question that most people are too afraid to even ask out loud. Why do Jewish people, who make up less than 0.2% of the world's population, represent a hugely disproportionate share of the world's billionaires, Nobel Prize winners, and top business leaders? Is it luck? Is it connections? Is it some kind of unfair advantage? The answer is none of those things. And today we are going to look at the real reason, the cultural principles, the mindset patterns, the financial habits, and the community structures that have been passed down through Jewish families for generations. This is not about religion. This is not about politics. This is about a set of ideas and practices around money, education, and community that happen to work extraordinarily well, and that anyone from any background can study, respect, and apply. My name is Mike, and this might be the most important financial education video you watch this year. Let's go. Before we get into the principles, we need to understand the context, because it explains everything. For most of recorded history, Jewish people faced extreme restrictions. In medieval Europe, they were banned from owning land. They were banned from most professions and trades. They were frequently expelled from countries without warning, sometimes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. This created an extraordinary forced adaptation. If you cannot own land, what do you invest in? Things that cannot be taken away. Knowledge, skills, relationships, portable wealth. If you can be expelled at any moment, what do you build? Things that travel with you. A reputation, a network, a mind trained to solve problems quickly, financial assets that are liquid and movable. If you are excluded from institutions, what do you create? Your own. Community banks, mutual aid societies, trade guilds, educational networks, all built within the community to serve the community. This historical context is not about victimhood. It is about understanding how centuries of constraint produced one of the most resilient, adaptive wealth-building cultures in human history. The principles we are about to cover did not come from comfort. They came from necessity, and that is precisely why they are so powerful. Principle 1. Education is the ultimate asset. This is arguably the most important of everything we will discuss today. Education is not an expense. It is the highest return investment that exists. In Jewish culture, the emphasis on learning is not optional. It is central. It is identity. The very first prayer a Jewish child learns contains the words to study and to teach. Learning is considered a religious obligation, not just a practical one. And this is not limited to religious texts. Jewish families have historically pushed their children toward medicine, law, finance, science, and any field where knowledge creates lasting, portable value. Fields where what you know cannot be taken from you, even if everything else is. Here is the data behind this principle. Jewish Americans are among the most highly educated demographic groups in the United States and across most developed countries. This educational investment translates directly into higher earnings, better networks, and greater career mobility. But here's the personal finance translation that matters most. The Jewish approach to education is not about a degree for the sake of status. It is about acquiring knowledge that solves real problems, builds real skills, and creates real financial leverage. A doctor can rebuild her practice in any city, in any country. An engineer can find work on any continent. A lawyer trained in commercial contracts can serve clients globally. These are portable, durable, high-value skills. Apply this. Treat every book you read, every course you complete, every skill you build as a deposit into an investment account. The return does not come immediately, but it compounds for decades. Principle 2. Community is a financial system. The community is not just social. It is financial infrastructure. Jewish communities around the world have historically operated as self-supporting economic ecosystems. There is a concept in Jewish tradition called a tzedakah, often translated as charity, but it is actually closer to justice or obligation. Giving back to the community is not optional generosity. It is a duty, and it flows in every direction. The successful help the struggling, and the community as a whole rises together. But beyond giving, Jewish communities have long practiced what we might call economic solidarity. Buy from people in your network when you can. Refer business to people you trust. Vouch for promising young people in your community when they need a break. This creates something extraordinary, a trust-based economic network. When you know someone through your community, through shared values, shared history, shared institutions, the friction of doing business drops dramatically. You do not need expensive lawyers for every deal. You do not need to verify every reputation from scratch. Trust is the currency. And trust, at scale, within a reliable network, becomes one of the most powerful financial tools in existence. There is a reason that the most successful business people in every culture tend to say the same thing. Their breakthrough came through a person, not a platform. It came through a relationship, not a resume. Apply this. Invest deliberately in your community, join groups, show up, contribute before you need anything. Be known as someone who gives value. Over time, the network you build becomes one of your most powerful financial assets. Principle 3. Play the long game. Always think in decades, not in months. Jewish culture has a deep relationship with long-term thinking. Partly this comes from history. A people who have survived thousands of years of adversity do not plan for next quarter. They plan for the next generation. There is a famous story in the Talmud about a man named Honi, who saw an old man planting a carob tree. Honi asked, "Why are you planting a tree whose fruit you will never live to eat?" The old man answered, "I found carob trees because my ancestors planted them for me. I plant for my children." This is not just a beautiful story. It is a financial philosophy. The wealthiest Jewish families think about what they are building for their grandchildren, not what they can spend today. This long-term thinking shows up practically in several ways. Preference for businesses that can be built over decades rather than flipped quickly. Preference for education investments that pay off over a lifetime rather than quick certificates that look good on a resume. Preference for real assets, property, ownership stakes, intellectual property, overconsumption, and it shows up in delayed gratification at a personal level. Drive a modest car until you can pay cash. Live in a reasonable home until the business is fully established. Reinvest profit before upgrading lifestyle. Apply this. Before every major financial decision, ask yourself, how does this choice look in 20 years? The answer to that one question will change most of your decisions immediately. Principle 4. Own things. Don't just work for things. Own assets. Do not just earn income. There is a fundamental difference in how wealthy Jewish families have historically thought about work versus wealth. Work generates income. Ownership generates wealth. They are not the same thing. Income from a job stops the day you stop working. Wealth from ownership continues to grow while you sleep, while you travel, while you age. This is why Jewish culture has traditionally placed enormous value on business ownership, on property ownership, on partnership stakes, on intellectual property, things that generate value independently of your daily labor. And historically, given that land ownership was often denied and professional access was restricted, Jewish entrepreneurs channeled their energy into ownership through business, trading companies, financial institutions, publishing houses, entertainment studios, law firms, medical practices. In each case, the goal was not just to earn a salary. The goal was to build something that had standalone value, something that could be passed to the next generation, something that compounded over time. There is a saying often quoted in financial education circles: workers earn income, business owners earn cash flow, investors earn returns. The wealthy operate at the second and third level simultaneously. Apply this. Ask yourself what you own, not what you earn, what you own. A skill you can sell is good. A business built around that skill is better. An ownership stake in something that grows without your daily presence. That is where real wealth begins. Principle 5, Chutzpah, audacious confidence, Chutzpah. This is a Yiddish word that roughly translates to audacious boldness, and it is deeply woven into Jewish entrepreneurial culture. Chutzpah is the willingness to attempt things that seem unreasonably ambitious, to pitch to the biggest client in the room when you're a brand new company, to start the business before you feel fully ready, to raise your price when every instinct says you should lower it, to ask for the deal when everyone else is waiting to be asked. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is believing you are better than others. Chutzpah is believing that you have something real to offer and being willing to put it on the table despite uncertainty and fear. In financial terms, Chutzpah shows up as the willingness to invest before you feel fully confident, to start the business before the plan is perfect, to make the ask before you are certain of the answer, to take the calculated risk before the outcome is guaranteed. Most people wait until they feel ready. They wait for certainty, and certainty never arrives, so they never start. The people who build wealth are not less afraid. They are equally afraid, and they move anyway. They make the call. They submit the application. They send the pitch. They buy the asset. Apply this. Identify one thing in your financial life where you are waiting to feel ready. Decide today that you will take the first step before you are ready. The readiness comes after the action, not before. Principle 6. Money is a tool, not a trophy. Money is a means to an end, not the end itself. This might sound counterintuitive in a video about building wealth, but it is one of the most important distinctions in Jewish financial philosophy. Jewish tradition has a complicated but ultimately practical relationship with money. Wealth is not celebrated for its own sake. It is valued for what it enables: education, security, community support, freedom, and the ability to live according to your values. There is a concept called Bal Tashchit in Jewish law, which means do not waste, do not destroy, do not consume more than you need. This is not about poverty. It is about intentionality. Use what you need. Invest the rest. Do not waste resources on things that do not create lasting value. This philosophy produces a specific financial behavior. Wealthy Jewish families often live far more modestly than their net worth would suggest, not because they cannot afford more, but because spending on status symbols is considered wasteful. The money has better uses. Think about this in your own life. How much of what you spend is genuinely improving your life? And how much is performance, buying things to signal status, to people whose opinion ultimately does not matter? Every dollar spent on performance is a dollar not compounding in an investment account. Apply this. Assign a purpose to your money. Every dollar should have a job. Spending on genuine well-being, relationships, and experiences, valuable. Spending to impress or to fill an emotional gap. Evaluate that honestly. Principle 7. Question. Everything of the debate culture. Question everything, including conventional financial wisdom. One of the most distinctive features of traditional Jewish education is the practice of Talmudic debate. Students are not taught to memorize answers. They are taught to question premises, examine arguments from multiple angles, identify contradictions, and defend positions under pressure. This produces a mental habit that is extraordinarily valuable in business and investing. The ability to think critically, to ask, does this actually make sense? Who benefits from this belief? What does the other side of this argument look like? What am I not seeing? In financial terms, this questioning mindset produces investors and entrepreneurs who do not just follow the crowd. They analyze. They look for what is mispriced, what is misunderstood, what the market is getting wrong. Warren Buffett's entire investing philosophy is built on questioning consensus. When everyone is selling, he asks, is this asset actually worth less, or are people just scared? When everyone is buying, he asks, does this price actually make sense given the fundamentals? This is the Talmudic question applied to markets. And in your personal finances, the same habit matters enormously. Question the conventional advice that says you should buy a house at any price because property always goes up. Question the financial product your bank is recommending. Question the investment trend that everyone on social media is excited about this week. Apply this. Before every major financial decision, write down 3 reasons the decision might be wrong. Not to paralyze yourself, but to sharpen your thinking. The best decisions survive rigorous questioning. The weak ones reveal themselves. Principle 8. Give generously. The tzedakah flywheel gives strategically and consistently. Tzedakah, the Jewish concept of charitable giving, is one of the most misunderstood principles when viewed through a pure wealth-building lens. On the surface, giving money away seems like the opposite of building wealth. But the reality is far more nuanced and far more powerful. Jewish law traditionally prescribes giving 10% of net income to charitable causes, a practice called maser. But beyond the spiritual dimension, there is a deeply practical financial mechanism at work. When you give consistently and visibly within your community, you build a reputation as someone of integrity, someone of means, someone invested in the community's well-being. That reputation opens doors. It creates relationships. It generates trust. And in business, trust is the foundation of every deal. Beyond reputation, giving trains your mindset to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. When you give freely, you signal to yourself and your financial psychology that there is enough. And people who operate from an abundance mindset consistently make better investment decisions, take more productive risks, and attract more opportunities than people who operate from fear of scarcity. Scarcity thinking hoards. Abundance thinking compounds. Apply this. Set a fixed percentage of your income, even just 1 or 2% to start, to give consistently. Give to causes you genuinely believe in. Track it. Watch how it changes your relationship with money over time. The return is not always financial, but the financial return often follows anyway. Principle 9. Build wealth. That cannot be taken, build wealth. That is portable, durable, and invisible to those who might take it. This principle grew directly from historical necessity, but its applications in modern personal finance are profound. When you cannot own land, you invest in knowledge. When you can be expelled at any time, you build skills that work in any country. When your physical assets can be seized, you build relationships and reputation that cannot be confiscated. In practical modern terms, this translates into a specific wealth-building hierarchy. At the foundation, invest in education and skills first, before property, before stocks, before anything else. Skills are the most portable asset class that exists. Second tier, invest in relationships and reputation. Your professional network is an asset. Your track record is an asset. The goodwill you have built is an asset. These travel with you through job changes, through economic downturns, through any crisis. Third tier, invest in assets that are diversified geographically and across asset classes. Not all property in one city. Not all investments in one market. Not all income from one source. This is not paranoia. It is prudence. And in a world where economic disruption, career displacement, and market volatility are constant realities, the Jewish historical lesson of portable, diversified wealth has never been more relevant. Apply this. Audit your wealth today. How much of it is locked in one place, one employer, one asset class, one market? Diversify deliberately and consistently. Build the skills and relationships that would survive any individual financial crisis. Principle 10. Build for the next generation. This is the principle that ties everything together. Everything you build is for the next generation. This is perhaps the deepest and most transformative shift in financial thinking that Jewish wealth culture offers. The question is not just, what can I build in my lifetime? It is, what foundation am I laying for my children's lifetime and their children's lifetime after that? This thinking changes every financial decision. You do not just save for your retirement. You save and invest so that your children inherit a financial foundation rather than a financial burden. You do not just build a business for current income. You build it so that it can be passed down or sold for generational capital. You teach your children about money not because you want them to be obsessed with wealth, but because financial literacy is the most practical inheritance you can give. A child who understands compound interest, who knows how to evaluate a business, who understands the difference between assets and liabilities. That child starts their adult life with an enormous advantage. There is a saying, the first generation makes it, the second generation grows it, the third generation keeps it. Jewish families have historically defied this three-generation curse by embedding financial education and values into family culture from the very first generation. The family dinner table becomes a financial classroom. The high holy days become an occasion to review family financial goals. The coming-of-age ceremony becomes a moment to open an investment account for the young person. Apply this. Start the financial conversation in your family today. Teach your children what money is, how it works, how it grows. Set up even a small investment account in a child's name, and explain to them what it is and why it is growing. The best inheritance is not money. It is the wisdom to create money. Now let's make this completely practical, because everything we have discussed, the history, the principles, the philosophy, means nothing unless you can use it. Here is a framework you can start applying this week, regardless of where you are financially right now. Step 1. Invest in one skill this month. Not a random skill, a high-value skill that directly increases your earning power or business capability, a financial modeling course, a sales skill, a specific technical certification. Pick one. Start it. Step 2. Identify your community. Who are the 3 to 5 people in your life with whom you could build a genuine economic relationship, sharing opportunities, making introductions, supporting each other's growth? Invest in those relationships deliberately. Step 3. Take inventory of what you own versus what you earn. If everything you have is tied to your active labor, your salary, your hourly rate, then you own nothing that generates value without you. Start with even a small index fund investment. Own something. Step 4. Decide on your giving percentage. Even 1% of income given consistently builds the abundance mindset and the community reputation that accelerates long-term wealth. Step 5. Have one financial conversation with your family this month. Whether you have children or not, share one money principle you learned today. Financial culture is built through repetition and conversation. Step 6. Ask the 20-year question before every significant financial decision. How will this look in 2 decades? This one question filters out most bad decisions automatically. These 6 steps will not make you rich overnight, but practiced consistently over years, they will change your financial trajectory permanently. Before we wrap up, I want to address something directly, because this topic sometimes gets misunderstood. What we have discussed today is not about any conspiracy. It is not about suggesting that any group of people has unfair advantages handed to them. And it is absolutely not about stereotypes. What this video is about is cultural practices. The same way we can study how Japanese manufacturing culture produces extraordinary quality, or how Chinese family savings culture produces high savings rates, or how Silicon Valley startup culture produces high risk tolerance and innovation. Cultural practices around money, education, community, and mindset when they are consistently applied over generations, produce measurable financial outcomes. That is what we studied today. Every single principle we covered is available to every single person watching this video. You do not need to be Jewish to invest in your education. You do not need to be Jewish to build a trust-based network. You do not need to be Jewish to think in decades instead of days. You do not need to be Jewish to give generously and build community. These are human principles that happen to be embedded deeply in one culture's identity. Studying them with respect and applying them with consistency is one of the most productive things anyone can do. The goal of this channel is always the same. Find what works, understand why it works, and make it accessible to everyone. That is what we did today. None of these principles require wealth to begin. They are the principles that create wealth, starting from wherever you are right now. If this video opened something for you, please hit the like button and subscribe. Share it with one person in your life who is serious about building something real. And leave a comment below. Which of the 10 principles hit you hardest today? I read every single one. This has been Wealth Secrets of Lost Empires. And next time, we are going inside the Dutch Golden Age, where a country the size of a small state invented the stock market, the multinational corporation, and the very concept of shareholder capitalism.